Welcome back, WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. All of our Festivus magic this week brought to you by our friends at Raskin Global. I got the Raskin Global shirt on. The Raskin part kind of is like, but the good news is he gives me investments. So I have the investments here on the scene, and might need a mint after this game here on Sunday. It is Festivus week. This guy was a part of the Purple Army around here for a period of time, covering the Ravens, then slid off to Philadelphia where they won the Super Bowl. Sent Schwartzy into retirement here this week. He's down at Schwartz's home of Nashville. Covered all things Tennessee Titans. We welcome back on one of our defending champions around here. Get a nice bookshelf behind him as well from ESPN and the worldwide leader. We welcome Turron Davenport back onto the program. What's going on, brother? How are things there? I've asked everyone first things first. I mean, your city had a bombing on Christmas Day, and I'm not coming in this week, and part of it is, man, I can't imagine just seeing what that carnage looks like because I've seen it on TV, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually went downtown last week and saw some of the area. They have most of it blocked off, but it's unbelievable to see it. I mean, it's like something you see from a movie, and I'm just glad no one got hurt. You know, definitely have to shout out the 6 first responders that really saved lives.
Heroes,
exactly. Got to call them heroes, and for that reason, the Titans have a 615 logo on there's a decal on their helmet, and the 6 is outlined it's colored in the light blue, the Titans blue, and the rest of the
Houston Oiler blue. Blue. Come on now, you know.
Hey, listen, man, I'm in Nashville, so we'll call it what we call it here. You know, Titans
I found my big box of Houston Oilers. You know, I was such a huge Houston Oiler fan. Like, I was a nut.
Yeah.
And I have a whole box of all the 80s Warren Moon stuff, and man, I found it last weekend out at the radio station. I'm like, man, it's crazy how this stuff bubbles back up. You know, I found that stuff on Saturday, and on Sunday night we're playing the Titans again, and it's Eddie George and Ray Lewis and Anthony Mitchell and Al Decker. I mean, all these names, right? I mean, this has really become something.
Yeah, it has. It's become an intense rivalry, and I think another twist to it was over the last 2 years, right, where the Ravens came up here to Nashville and put a beat down 21-0 on the Titans and had 11 sacks in that game. Dean Pease as the defensive coordinator, with Wink Martindale as the DC for the Ravens. So that's another connection. And then last year, we know what happened in the divisional round. So it's going to be a lot of emotion here. I don't care what these Ravens players are saying. They absolutely are looking at this as a get-back game. I 100% believe that.
Well, it's a long off season. And, you know, I remember walking out with Luke. My jaw was dropped, right? I mean, like, I had spent the previous 72 hours in South Florida. I had hotels, parties, plans, all the stuff that I do. And I'm walking out of the stadium and the season's over. And I said to Luke, I said, man, responding from this, like, nothing matters until they get back here again. And COVID, the long off season, all the things that happen, they're not 14-2. Everything isn't perfect. Marshall Yanda and Ronnie Stanley and Nick Boyle, you know, pieces that were there last year to make that team so special aren't there. But I'll tell you what, the last month, they've sort of rounded out a little bit. They've looked like a different football team. They look like they have a different will. They look like they wanted to be a different kind of football team back in October in regard to passing and what Lamar was doing and wasn't doing. And I know, you know, you are the X's and O's guy. I mean, that's what makes you special in what you do. I know you're watching film. You're doing it. Give me a little lowdown on these teams because they have played a lot recently, but they look a lot different right now.
Yeah, I tell you from a Ravens perspective, I think a lot of things changed after, what was that, week 9 or week 10 when Nick Boyle went down. You started to see a bit less of the bigger packages, and Greg Roman started to spread things around a little bit. In fact, if you want some numbers for this year, 48% of the time the Ravens have been in on offense, they've been in 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. And what has ended up happening is that spread the football field out. And it's kind of like if you think back to the Lakers days, right, with Magic Johnson and Byron Scott and James Worthy, they would run that fast break. and Michael Cooper too, you know, they would have that spacing in there, and that would allow Magic, you know, to know a guy was here, fake this way and throw this way. And there was spacing and room to operate, and that's something that Lamar Jackson needs because he is the most dynamic player in the league. So giving him that space has helped things out a lot, and that also gives opportunities for guys like J.K. Dobbins. I mean, that rushing attack has really taken off. And then they're countering that with some of the jet sweeps and those type of things to your speed guys. I mean, Devin Duvernay is someone that you saw the run that he had against the Bengals last year. I think it was like last week. I think it was like 18 yards. So that's kind of what I'm seeing.
They've been trying to do that all year. That hasn't been nearly as successful. That play didn't look as good in October, November, I assure you.
But it's a lot tougher to do that when you have two tight ends on the field and it's more condensed. So now that you have the three receivers and stuff is spaced out, because in essence, you know, 11 personnel is also referred to as spread offensive formation. You know, so you're literally spreading it out. And going against the Ravens, and you saw that what the Titans did last year, they would kind of have that double contain on one side, and they would blitz Logan Ryan. They used him to blitz and just kind of flush Lamar Jackson to one half of the field, condensing his space and also gaining an extra defender in the sideline. And that's something that I wrote about. It posted on Tuesday morning on ESPN.com. So what Greg Roman is doing now is just like it's countering what teams have tried to do, especially after what the Titans did in that divisional playoff game.
Well, that helps when you can be multiple, but at the end of the day, they're going to need to throw the ball at some point,
Yes.
and they're going to need to do that well. When they've done that well, they win. When they don't do that well, they don't win. And I've seen Lamar come out on days and look like Billy Kilmer this year, you know, like just not very good, not very accurate. And then there's been other days, most of the days last year for sure, where he was just accurate in making the right decision at the right time. And part of that, like to your 11 personnel, the further you get the defenders away from him pre-snap, the more possibilities I think he has, right? Like just keep more people away from him. And the way they've run with the running backs, I mean, J.K. Dobbins, there was a lot of, why are they taking him with that pick? You know, they've already got Ingram. They've already got Gus. They really already have their running back. Lamar is their running back, kind of, sort of, right? I mean, he's their best running back for sure. Do they need another running back? And through all of this, dealing off Hayden Hurst, who was a number one pick, deciding that they were going to draft a running back, all the problems they've had, losing Boyle, losing Ronnie Stanley, they've looked like the best version of themselves throughout the last 3-4 weeks. And I know the competition is what it is, but even the Cleveland game, the offense, they've been mistake-free. They've just done a lot of things right the last month to make us feel good about them Sunday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, without a doubt. And they're leading the league in rushing. They were the best rushing team in each of the last 2 years. So that definitely goes without saying that they're running the ball really well. And I just like the way they're working everybody to get everybody involved. I think another thing you have to look at is Mark Andrews and what he's able to do, because going against Lamar Jackson, you tend to be a little bit hesitant to play zone man defense, right? You want to lean more towards zone. So at least that way you can have your eyes on the quarterback. When you got a guy like Lamar that could get 10 yards, you definitely need to go more zone and not have your back to him, because before you know it, he will have gained 10, 15 yards. And we know how Lamar Jackson is.
Well, and then you got Willie Snead or somebody down the field cracking on you, right, too? I mean, all the wide receivers are meant to be blockers in space in some sort of symphonic way that, like, other teams don't plan to block for their quarterback 12 yards down the field. This team has drafted for that for 3 years now.
Yeah, and, just to get back to that zone concept, that's where Mark Andrews comes in. You know, he's really good in finding holes in zones. But you talk about receivers that block. I tell you what, it doesn't come much better than Corey Davis, for the Titans. And A.J. Brown has done a killer job as well. But, I mean, if you look at Corey Davis, you want a guy who will dig things out, a guy who sometimes they'll bring in motion and have him just next to the tackle and crack down on the defensive end. That's Corey Davis. He's the best blocking wide receiver in the league.
Well, and they need that as well, right? They draft for that as well when they have a 260 whatever pound running back pounding on you. And I remember last year they didn't look like they wanted to tackle him in the second half, right? And I sort of saw that a little bit last week with Houston. I mean, I haven't seen the Titans play every week. Give me a Derrick Henry update other than they were hell-bent on getting him to 2,000 yards, weren't they?
They weren't bent on getting them to 2,000. That's them. And that's the thing that's so cool about it is that's just the way they go about business. And not only did Derrick Henry have 2,000 yards, A.J. Brown had 1,000 yards receiving. Corey Davis was 16 yards short of 1,000 as well. So their whole thing is balance on offense. And that's why Arthur Smith is such a hot candidate, because they have found a way to be just ridiculously effective in the air and on the ground. And as far as Derrick Henry is concerned, when you have a guy that could get 300, he had 378 carries. On those 378 carries, he's averaging 5.4 yards per carry. So it's not like it's all, 2 yards in a cloud of dust. I mean, that definitely happens, but you have the home run ability. You remember the jump cut and acceleration off of that 29-yard run in overtime earlier this season, and that's just an example.
Turron Davenport covers all things Titans down in Nashville for the worldwide leader, where they are picking up the pieces down there. I am skipping out this week. Have you been going on the road with the team? And I know COVID's been bad where you are. It's one of the reasons I'm sort of bailing on it. Give me a little snapshot of how you've had to cover the team this year, because it's been weird for all of us.
Yeah, it's been road games. It's been a lot of Zoom, or just period. It's been a lot of Zoom calls. That's how we're going about it. Obviously, some of the text messages and things, connections to players, you could work off of that. But it's definitely been a strain, and you're just constantly working to find unique content, because everyone has access to the same Zoom calls, right? So
I call them hostage videos here. I mean, they really they look like the players don't want to be there. They want to be done. Everything's a short answer. There, it's not good. It hasn't been good for the league, I think, this year in a lot of ways. That's been the coverage, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough, but last year was a year of adjustment for everybody. I think, that's something you had to keep in mind. So I feel fortunate that we were able to still cover a season. So that being said, any complaints or anything that I may have about it, I've just kind of tucked those away and just said, well, let's plow through it, because we're fortunate to be able to still do this.
Well, you had the first scare in the league, right? And,
yes.
And you're covering that, obviously. I haven't been near the building. I mean, I had breakfast with John in March, and I haven't been back in 9 months. I haven't asked a whole lot of questions. I'm in on these hostage videos, but, I mean, asking dumb questions in press conferences to questions they're not going to answer, or they're going to answer poorly. I don't know. It's been weird for me. I've been less interested in what anybody has to say because nobody has much to say, and I sort of know that going in.
Yeah, it's a little different as far as being able to get in-depth answers to your questions. It really just it's taken a lot to just you got to really adjust the way you do things, because you don't have that I'm in front of you, you're in front of me conversation. And like for me, I've always benefited from one-on-one conversations. That's always been my thing. I love to do that, even back in my Ravens days, pulling Jimmy Smith aside, Steve Smith, Zadarius Smith, a lot of guys, just pulling them aside.
All the Smiths.
Talk to them that way. Yeah, the Smith brothers, all three of them. But yeah, it's
you forgot Torrey.
And how could I forget Torrey, because that carried over to Philly. So yeah, I can't forget Torrey as well, who has his own show, by the way. His own podcast.
Well, he just made an investment in I point over here, right in West Baltimore, right behind me, about 2.5 miles away, in Hilton Rec Center here. So we had him on a couple weeks ago. He's doing great things here. I mean, the league is great in that way, right? I mean, bringing people together in so many different ways, and we can go down the Colin Kaepernick road of what's wrong, and the knee and all that from 3 years ago. But 256 games during the plague. Since the last time you and I got together, I threw a few tantrums. I mean, I don't want to see the Denver Broncos. I don't see the league sanction a game with no quarterbacks. It was sickening. And what the Ravens went through going up to Pittsburgh, much through their own their own issue internally, and I'm sure the Titans had their own breakdowns and their own protocols, as I remember, as well, with guys getting sick. The league's held it together, right? 256 games and more than that. And I know I did talk to you about this the last time we got together. I kept saying Eddie Feigner, the old softball pitcher, because that's an exhibition. That's not a real season. And I felt like the baseball season kind of went off the rails in that way. Baseball felt like a tournament, not like – and I thought basketball and hockey too. The NFL, this feels real. It feels like 6 games this weekend and these triple headers. It feels like it's been competitive competition in a real way, that this isn't a season with an asterisk. Or now, if Patrick Mahomes gets COVID the day before the Super Bowl or whatever, I mean, there's still all of that could – hell, we got this goof attempting a coup down in D.C. this week. So, who knows? But I feel like they're going to get to the end of this, and it's credible. And for that, I'm grateful not just as a media member, but as a fan. I don't want to see them doing Fonzie jump the shark. I don't want to see them playing more games without quarterbacks, man.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, you want to see quality football. I'm a fan of football as well. No team, but, I still like to see a quality product and be able to cover a quality product as well.
Man, you're so neutral. Who was your team when you were a kid?
The 49ers.
Okay.
I was a 49er fan for quite some time, and it's strange because my favorite player ever is Andre Reed, and I always loved those Buffalo Bills teams, those 90 teams, 91, 92, even the 94 team. But
running a K-gun, baby.
K-gun, that's right. And it's funny because when I was in Philly,
Ted Marchibroda.
Oh yeah, you can't forget Ted March. Yep, that's right, the OC there. And it was cool, being in Philly with Frank Wright as the OC, because I would drop a Pete Metzelaars or Carwell Gardner on him, and it just looked like, where did that come from? But it's just, I like that Bills team, but I was always a 49er fan. I was that way all the way up until they fired Jim Harbaugh and not John, John's brother. But after that, I just I'm going, this is my professional side of it, and I'm not going to have a team.
Turron, let's go back to the beginning of the conversation in my Elvin Bethea jersey over there. Frank Reich was a 4-letter word in my life for a long, long time after what happened up there in Buffalo, with my Oilers. And Frank, of course, led that incredible comeback with the Terps in Miami and, all that. And now he's going back to Buffalo this week, right, with the Colts. With the team of my childhood. So all of these games and these pieces, and even the Bears sneak in, and there's just stories throughout the league. And I know how much you love the league. Tom Brady's playing on Saturday night in Tampa against the Washington football team, a division winner, by the way. There's great stories, but this game here, Ravens-Titans, I think based on what happened last year, based on the ghost of Eddie George and Ray Lewis and Steve McNair and all the other things that happened many, many moons ago, that the winner of this game picks up some momentum here, right? To say Buffalo, Kansas City, okay. I don't know who's going to win this tournament. I know Kansas City's sitting home filing their nails right now watching football this weekend, but I don't necessarily – I've seen them not show up some Sundays this year. And you talk about the Ravens having some RA. The Chiefs have beaten them up pretty good 3 in a row, and Lamar even called them kryptonite at one point. So, the Ravens have a little bit of a chip going here. All the way through this thing, that if they were to pick up a little momentum, Lamar's hard to tackle, but so's Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and I think the major thing for the Ravens is this is a team they're on a 5-game win streak, right? And they've been playing playoff games since October, to be honest with you, because it just has mattered that much after, they kind of fell by the wayside a bit. So I think that makes them a very dangerous team. And it's unfortunate because we talk about stories. This game, I think, is one of the best matchups. And it's one that's not going to get the same attention because neither of these teams are sexy teams that score 40 points a game and pass the ball 50 times. These are two teams that play football the old school way, the way it always was meant to be played, and not like this arena league look that you're seeing from a lot of teams. So it's not going to get the same attention, and you're 100% right. Derrick Henry is absolutely hard to tackle. The stiff arm, you saw it multiple times, what he did to Earl Thomas, Josh Norman. the poor Alex Myers on the Lions. He puts that out, and I don't think they're. I got to take a deep breath before I say it, but I don't think there's ever been, outside of maybe Eric Dickerson, I don't think there's ever been the same blend of size, speed, power, and acceleration. I don't think this league has seen what Derrick Henry brings to the table.
Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell.
Earl Campbell was a great back. Different though. I think the blend of everything.
If Eddie George was nasty, it would be like this a little bit. Like giving out punishment as they run was something Earl did with his body. I think it's different to get B-slapped as you get run by. You know what I mean? Yeah, the fact that he has a knockout punch about him is – I think it makes every linebacker safety court, no matter how nasty they are. Marlon Humphrey, you want to punch the ball? Okay. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? The different punching the ball from him, I think.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that's different from Earl Campbell is two things, length and acceleration, right? What's different from Eddie George is the acceleration. Like Eddie George was a horse. He was a Clydesdale, man, but the only thing that he didn't bring to the table was the ability to run away from defensive backs. I'll go back to that game earlier this season, the 29-yard run. After he made that jump cut, it was and he was gone, and he pulled away from all of the Ravens defensive backs. It's very rare to have a guy that's 6'3", 247 pounds do something like that, and that's what makes him so special.
He looked special at Alabama a couple of years ago, and I kept going back to every week. That was the year my wife was sick, and I sat in hospital every week, and Alabama's on, and I'm watching the game, and he's just killing people. And I thought, man, he's going to be a load in the league, and it didn't catch on right away, right? And certainly their offense and Mariota and everything was going on there. But based on what they did last year in January, there's no intimidation. They have a home game. I know, very unfortunate for the organization because – and it took me this week that the last time they hosted a playoff game was when we went down there and beat them. And I'm having Matt Stover on later on this week to commemorate that, and Anthony Mitchell to commemorate the Del Greco. I'm trying to do everything I can do other than get a Jeff Fisher doll here to stick pins in or something. You know what I mean? We're trying to make the season go on. And Turron, for all the decoration for Lamar – and for the Ravens and John Harbaugh and blah, blah, blah and all that, most of the modern guys on this team have never won a playoff game. I mean, you can talk about Sam Cook or Justin Tucker or Anthony Levine going back old school to the Flacco era, to the heart of the Flacco era. But Brandon Williams hadn't won a playoff game. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys on the team here that have been around a long time. Matt Judon, guys got a lot of money in the bank, and they played a lot of football, and they haven't won a game in January. That's a hell of a donut to hang on your head for another 12 more months if things don't go well for them on Sunday, especially the way they're playing. It'd be devastating to go down there and lose on Sunday from our side.
Yeah, it would definitely be devastating. I will say this, though. You do have Calais Campbell there and Marcus Peters, and those are two guys that have made playoff runs. But more importantly, Campbell, him being back, listen, Calais Campbell is a Titan killer. The things that he and Yannick Ngakoue used to do to the Titans as far as tackle and NTE stunts and things like that, they caused all kinds of havoc on the Titans' offensive line. So that's something that I'm looking at. Ngakoue is there in Baltimore now, and Calais Campbell is going to be on the field this time. That's a huge difference. And also Brandon Williams, one of the best run stuffers in the league that gets zero credit, even though he's a top-level player.
Every time he doesn't play, I'm watching running back. I'm seeing the back of their jersey all day. Literally, over the last 5 years, when he doesn't play, they do not perform well.
Yeah, exactly. And that just goes to show you what he brings to the table. It doesn't show up in the box score. It shows up on the scoreboard.
By the way, I was disrespectful to Jimmy Smith. I forgot his name, too. You brought it up earlier. He's still here. He's coming back in. I mean, old guy's still going out there and getting it done. Turron Davenport's here from ESPN and the worldwide leader down there in Nashville where they're putting it together and getting ready for a football game at 1 o'clock on Sunday. We've had many, many late Saturday nights from Printers Alley, up and down the Strip, out to Opryland, and over to the West End and over to Music Row, like all around there. And I'm not coming in this week. COVID's no good, and I've just kept the peace and kept my points. And I might go out to Kansas City next week just because I'm like feeling like if they're going to run, and I felt like if they're going to lose in Nashville, I don't want to be there. To your point, we're only seeing the thing on Zoom. Give me a little primer for what your expectations are on Sunday as far as somebody winning. I would not. I'm not going because I don't expect them to win. I expect them to win. That's just why I have the flight next week.
Well, I'm going to go on the other side of the coin, and I do think the Titans are going to win this game. I think for me, the main thing is the way that they can match up against this Ravens offense. And there aren't a lot of teams that can have more defensive backs on the field and defend the run just as well as if they were in base. But the Titans are one of them. And I think there's two players that are critical to that. I mentioned Logan Ryan and what he does. Well, he's not here, but Desmond King is. And he's a guy that they've started to increase blitzing with, and he's someone that loves to tackle, as does everybody in that Titans secondary, which is huge when you're going against a team that runs the football so well. But the other player that's a major factor for me is Kenny Vaccaro, because Kenny Vaccaro is a guy that, even though he's a safety, you'll still see him come up and take on offensive linemen to the point where he takes them out and somebody else comes in and makes the tackle, but he still gives you that ability to play in space, which is what you have to do against the Ravens. So those are two guys that are huge to it. Kevin Byard, obviously, being able to play center field is a big factor as well. But they just have to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback and contain, in Lamar Jackson's case, and also be very sound in how they rush the passer. You can't leave those gaps because Lamar is slingshot right out of it. And next thing you know, he's dancing in the end zone 60 yards later. So I think the Titans match up well from those aspects, and I expect them to win. I think it's going to be somewhere around like a 35 to 28 type of game with the Titans moving on and playing whoever's there in the next round.
All right. Well, you're believing in you're buying the former Columbia Blue Kool-Aid down there. It's playoff time, and it really does ramp up the spirit and the energy of the whole community, even during a lockdown here. I told a story earlier this week. I was out visiting my parents' grave last week, and I turned the corner, and I hadn't seen Ravens flags on cars in a while. I don't know. Maybe I haven't been looking for it. But sure enough, right on the red light in front of me, there was a car that had the flag from 01 and the flag from 13. They looked like they were in pretty good shape. They looked like they didn't fly them 52 weeks the last 20 years. It looked like, all right, I break these out, Christmas week, like you do the tree, and I want to put them up for a couple of weeks for Festivus. And I thought to myself, that was a good little sign, you know what I mean? So I think we all get some spirit about us. I know you lived here for a period of time. You've covered a couple of teams right now. I would say, Vrabel looks like the real thing to me. And, you've been around the real thing a couple of times, a couple of winners, quite frankly. Vrabel looks like he's going to, continue upward. The next 5 years, they're going to hit their head somewhere.
Yeah, I think they will continue upwards. And I will say this. You mentioned me being around the real thing multiple times. John Harbaugh is absolutely the real thing. Love the way he approaches things. And he is a true leader of men in all ways with that team. So I wanted to shout that out. And it's unfortunate because he does such a good job every year, you take it for granted. Every single year, John Harbaugh should be up for Coach of the Year. Every single year he should be up.
I got people that, want to fire him on social media, and I shake my head, and I'm like, John Harbaugh would be out of work 5 minutes. Like
5 minutes.
Literally. Everybody's looking to get a John Harbaugh. I mean, it's like, and this is a great week to talk about this, Tron, because, I mean, you cover the Black Monday and the coaching circuit. And if you're in Tennessee, they were on that circuit there for a long, long time. They finally got a coach where it's not part of your job this week. Your job this week is covering games in January, which is where I've been the last 24 years, where we don't axe general managers every week. 7 jobs out there right now. And the fact that like Marvin Lewis would be a punchline after what he did in Cincinnati is kind of disgraceful. And I even think that with Garrett as well. Garrett's out looking for a job now. These guys who did this at a high level and kept jobs for a decade and a half, turned around cultures, dealt with weird, wacky owners, which is most of the jobs in the league. This is a week to be keeping an eye on who's hiring what and for what reason, because it's just a tough job, man. I mean, you know that.
Yeah. Well, I tell you one name that's up there, and this is a testament to Mike Vrabel, right, and just what he did as far as surrounding himself with outstanding coaches, and that's Arthur Smith. And the thing with Arthur Smith is the scheme versatility, but just the ability to go out there and do what he wants to do, and the way he sets it up. He wants to throw the ball most of the time. He's going to run the ball to get you in those 8-in-the-box defenses, and he's going to throw off of that. If he wants to run the football, he's just going to run the football, but then they work play action off of it too. And I think just the way he does things, this game.
You muted down, Turron. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Sometimes it mutes itself.
You said this game? Go ahead.
Yeah, so with this game, watch the way some of the motions and shifts that he utilizes, how that sets players up and puts them in a position to execute that play that's given to him. You're really going to like it, man. There's a lot to his offense, and it's such a smash-mouth, balanced look. It's definitely something that a lot of GMs want.
Got to contain those wide receivers. Got to get a rush on Tannehill this week. Certainly got to tackle. I mean, you can't have Derrick Henry, arm tackling, missing tackles, picking up 6 and 8 yards, moving sticks because you're missing tackles. That can't be part of the game plan. It's going to be a hell of a football game on Sunday. Yeah. Turron, man, rest up, get some hot chicken or something on Saturday there, or whatever you're doing in Nashville. I'll be eating the world-famous Royal Farms chicken, which you don't have there because I've been to Nashville before. And, I'm sorry I'm not down there at Monell's having breakfast or at the Pancake Pantry, doing what I do so many times down there. Oh, my God, man. I got Predators jerseys in the closet from me and Trotz back in the day, man. So I do miss it. I'm not a country music fan either, but there's always been a hell of a live music scene down there, great concerts and the Ryman and, all of that. One day soon, we'll all, we'll get the shot, we'll get rid of the mask, we'll get together and have some normalcy. I might even come back to Indianapolis for the combine with you at some point if they let me. How about that?
Hey, that would be magical, man.
Take care of yourself. Stay safe, all right?
You got it. You too.
Always great to visit with you. Turron Davenport joining us here from ESPN on the Worldwide Leader. You can follow him out on Twitter and Facebook. Hey, Turron, you said you were doing something with Henry this week. You have a special thing going up on the site?
Yes. I have a post coming this week in regards to Derrick Henry and the volume of carries that he's taken this year. And
378. Actually, that's a big number.
I have a guy who had 387 carries, 2,000-plus yards in a Ravens uniform. He helped me with this project. Jamal Lewis will have him in there. Sean Alexander, another 2,000-yard rusher, and Adrian Peterson, as well as Eddie George, who we spoke about.
Billy took some heat at the end for doing that, that last week and running him, and we didn't play well the following week. There's a long – I saw that against the Texans, and I thought, wonder if Turron will be calling Jamal Lewis this week. And sure enough, you are. Hey, before I let you go, David Quesenberry is an unbelievable story. Yeah. And I've talked to people this week about him. He's special to me because he helped me swab on my tour. He's a survivor when my wife was surviving. He's already texted me this week. He's an amazing part of what they've done down there, especially after losing their tackle.
Yeah, he's done an excellent job. And to go from practice squad player to Taylor Lewan replacement and hold his own for the most part, I tip my cap to David, to DQ, as we call him. And that's even just excluding the football. He's such a down-to-earth, wholesome dude that you never see him upset, and the no bad days concept just so truly applies to him. And you go out there and you watch him in practice, this guy loves football. He loves it. And
we had it taken away from him a couple times, right?
Exactly. And that's something that you have to note. But you see him going through the motions, of executing everything, and it's great, man. And even just talking shop with him, the dude loves it, man, and he's so humble.
Tell
Great
him I'm going to get
spirit,
some
man.
fish tacos with him in San Diego if you see him, all right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't see
I feel,
anybody anymore. What am I saying? It's not like you're like rubbing elbows with guys or whatever.
yeah,
It's
I can shoot him a text. But when you do talk to him, ask him about Tyler Vrabel, right? Mike Vrabel's son, who is the starting left tackle for University Boston College, right? When he was going through his fight with cancer, he was still at the facility, David Quesenberry, that is, and Mike Vrabel would have his son there, and DQ, even though he was going through all that, he was still working with Tyler and helped him learn how to be an offensive lineman. And now look, he's a full scholarship, starting left tackle, future NFL player at Boston College.
Man, I knew when he was, fighting down at MD Anderson down there in Houston, and my wife was at Hopkins, and we're texting back and forth, and he's texting a picture, Jen Strong, we're texting, like back and forth. It's crazy that he showed back up, and I saw him in the lineup a couple months ago, and I'm like, wow, man, and now here we go again. So I'm glad you gave me that little nugget. That's bonus time. They charge you more for that on HBO, but we do that the right way. Turron, you're muted again, man. Go for it. Your mic's off. That's a 2020 line.
He caught a touchdown pass last year also.
I remember that.
So,
I do remember that.
That's that.
Well, that makes you a folk hero, like John Ogden, still dancing back in the day. Yeah. All right, Turron, I'll let you go, man. I know it's a busy week. I know it's crazy. Hang in there, but stay safe. We'll see you soon. I promise.
Thanks. You do the same. Appreciate
we'll be at a
it.
Super Bowl or an owners meeting or. Not the combine. I don't need to go to Indianapolis again. But a couple of days at the Biltmore I could use. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, and we are never going to stop talking Baltimore positive stuff.